Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a dangerous storm that'll bring significant severe weather to the United States today. This will bring the potential for significant damaging winds, large hail, and several tornadoes, which some of those tornadoes could be strong and perhaps violent. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's begin with that severe weather potential for today. And the Storm Prediction Center has issued an enhanced risk of severe weather in this orange shaded region. That is a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. This does include parts of East Texas back through central and northern Louisiana and central and southwestern Mississippi. One key note with this is that this could get upgraded to a moderate risk, at least for potentially, I would say, Louisiana, because of the tornado risk. So honestly, the tornado risk is pretty concerning today. Make sure you have your weather radio prepared, or at least multiple ways to receive alerts. Don't just rely on one source. Have multiple ways, like a phone, potentially watching a live stream or watching TV, and that sort of thing. Also, a good reminder to have a tornado action plan in place just in case you are under a tornado warning today. Outside of this enhanced region, we do have a slight risk that does include parts of western Alabama. That'll be for this evening into the overnight hours, and it goes even into North Texas. Notice this slight risk goes pretty far back to the west, and also the marginal threat goes as far north as Tennessee, parts of central Arkansas, and even into southeastern Oklahoma. Damaging wind concern is definitely one of the bigger concerns as well. This does include parts of Mississippi and as well as eastern Louisiana for the highest potential. This does represent a 30% chance of damaging winds within a 25-mile radius. So you definitely want to make sure you're protecting your flying trampolines, because those could go flying today. We do have a high risk for flying trampolines today. Tornado potential, it's again on the higher side of things, at least for what we are accustomed to across much of the United States. This is a 10% probability with a significant tornado potential in this area. That hatched area that you see there represents a 10% chance within a 25-mile radius of a strong tornado. So, and that would be an EF2 plus tornado. So definitely, again, make sure you have a tornado action plan in place and multiple ways to receive alerts. Even outside of this region, we do have a low-end tornado potential in that green shaded area. That is a very low-end chance, and then a low chance in the brown shaded region. That's more of a medium chance, I would say, in that yellow shaded region. That's kind of how I at least categorize it. And again, if we get a moderate risk of tornadoes specifically, it would be more of a high risk wherever that would be in terms of a tornado potential. In terms of the hail threat, it's not nearly as concerning. We don't really have an environment where hail is going to be a big concern. However, I wouldn't rule out maybe a little bit more hail than not across parts of eastern Texas today. Main reason why is because some discrete cells could fire off there, and where those initiate is usually where we see the largest of hail, and as well as the highest quantity of hail. So those areas definitely in the potential for really a better hail threat overall. All right, let's talk more about the setup for the severe weather event, because again, this is a very dynamic setup. It's a bit of an interesting setup as well, because we have a lot of shear in the environment today. This is the jet stream, so this is again high up atmosphere, and overall our low pressure system is sitting in the central plains, and here is your jet stream right now that is ripping across parts of the southern plains, and it will be across the Mississippi Valley later today. Overall, this is a very strong jet stream, and it's also a southwesterly flow, which will make things worse overall when it comes to the wind shear and also the rotation in these storms. We're definitely going to have a pretty decent tornado potential today, again, here across parts of the lower Mississippi Valley. And also, here's the low-level jet. This gives us an idea of the lower-level rotation with these supercells, and by around 6 o'clock tonight, we're talking about a low-level jet ripping around 45 to 55 knots, and unfortunately, again, this is just not good news. We are definitely in the threat here for, again, several tornadoes today across parts of the lower Mississippi Valley. It'll really peak overnight across parts of southern Tennessee. The good news is, though, we're not really going to have much of a tornado risk in Tennessee. The reason why is because there's not much instability up there. There will be a lot more rainfall. The best chance for any sort of tornadic activity will really be across this region here, as well as parts of East Texas. I do want to highlight that area as well for today. In terms of the significant tornado parameter, this gives us an idea of where that greatest tornado risk will lie today. And it's really important to look at this because we do have a pretty good idea of where that threat will be. And it's going to start across East Texas and Southeast Texas during the early to mid-afternoon hours. So if you're across parts of East Texas here, definitely be mindful of the potential for severe weather, including tornadoes this afternoon into the evening hours. So after sunset, that tornado risk is really going to start to increase across parts of central Louisiana, as well as parts of eastern Louisiana, and eventually into southwestern Mississippi. Again, notice where the highest values are here, and it'll be on this leading edge here. So right in this area, this will be around 9 o'clock or so tonight. That would be the area to watch for a definite chance here of at least a few tornadoes going going across Mississippi, and eventually as we go into Alabama, there will still be a tornado risk in Alabama, but it's going to be a bit lower as we head later into the overnight hours. But it's a good reminder to know that this might be a nocturnal threat, so it'll be nighttime. Some people might be sleeping, so you definitely want to make sure you have multiple ways to receive alerts. In terms of the timing, we're going to go state by state and region by region. So we're going to start with North Texas here, and storms overall today, they will not be, I would say, too bad for the DFW Metroplex. Just east of DFW, that is where we're going to be watching for several storms to fire up this afternoon, where some of these, again, could be rotating. Like, you could kind of pick out some of these storms in the HRR model. Any of these could be rotating very easily in the atmosphere, but obviously near the surface, we might not have a tornado ongoing, but any of these rotating supercells that have a prime position, meaning potentially discrete or just have a strong inflow, very easily could drop a tornado today. By 2 to 3 o'clock, those storms are all moving to the east, and honestly, North Texas is going to be done by 3 to 4 o'clock. So this is really an early afternoon threat, if anything, across North Texas. Overall, I don't think the severe weather, though, in North Texas will be by any means numerous or widespread. It'll be pretty isolated to widely scattered. Here's Southeast Texas today. We'll be watching for storms primarily north of Beaumont. This will be the area to watch for maybe a couple of supercells producing at least some rotation, maybe an isolated tornado. Damaging winds definitely a concern. This is by 3 to 4 o'clock. We will even be watching just east of Houston for perhaps maybe an isolated tornado. This is by 4 to 5 o'clock. Storms move into Louisiana, and again, by 6 to 7, storms are done in Texas. So we're not really looking at, again, an evening threat or overnight threat in Texas. The area that is much more concerning, though, for that nocturnal threat is Louisiana and Mississippi. So this is right around 12 to 1 o'clock. Again, notice not a whole lot of activity by 1 this afternoon. By 2 to 3 o'clock, we're going to be watching, though, for multiple supercells. And this is the HRR model. I do think it's overdoing these storms just a bit, but again, any of these storms that do become at least a little bit discrete and have a strong inflow could drop a tornado. So you want to have that tornado action plan in place. This is by 3 o'clock, though, so storms in western Louisiana. By 4 to 5 o'clock, storms are rolling right across central and eastern Louisiana. By 6 to 7, we're going to be looking at storms near Alexandria and just northeast of that, and eventually by 8 to 9, 10 o'clock, most of the storm activity in Louisiana will be back down here near Baton Rouge and Lafayette, and eventually going toward New Orleans and Yuma eventually by 10 to 11 o'clock. Storms also rolling through Hattiesburg and Jackson by midnight or so, and then eventually into the overnight hours. That tornado threat will not be done, by the way, by 12 o'clock. It's going to probably continue through the overnight hours, especially closer to the Gulf Coast. Here's Mississippi and Alabama for timing for today. Notice storms not really during the afternoon. Unfortunately for Mississippi and Alabama, this is way more of a nighttime threat than a daytime threat, because this is 6 o'clock, and again, notice there's really no storms right now that are going to be in Mississippi or Alabama by this point. The only exception might be right along the Mississippi River, but by 7 to 8 o'clock, we'll be watching for some storms near the Jackson area with perhaps a potential for rotation and maybe again a tornado potential. By 10 to 11 o'clock, these storms are moving to the east. By 12 to 1 in the morning, we still will be watching this area in particular for a higher tornado potential, but I would say after midnight tonight, that tornado threat will be gradually decreasing. So that's at least some good news in that department. And eventually, as we get closer to around 4 to 5 in the morning, these storms are going toward Monroeville and eventually going toward the Florida Panhandle, where a tornado risk could still exist even past really the morning hours. So definitely keep that in mind. And eventually, as we go into the early afternoon hours, storms will be moving into southwest Georgia. And this is the severe weather potential currently as we go into Tuesday, tossing trampolines on tall trees Tuesday. And as of right now, we do have a marginal threat of severe weather from North Carolina back into parts of Louisiana. Slight risk of severe weather across southern Alabama and Florida. That is where there is a slightly higher tornado potential. Outside of that, though, there's some good news. It's a very low chance for tornadoes, but you definitely want to make sure you still have a tornado action plan in place just in case there are any tornadoes. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll keep posted with the latest. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video.